We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including all kinds of NHL offseason trade talk. Today's teams focus on the Toronto Maple Leafs, St. Louis Blues, the Montreal Canadiens, Vancouver Canucks, and the Anaheim Ducks, plus some more talk around another potential UFA landing in Montreal. Could they possibly solve their number 2 center spot by looking to a free agent instead? Plus, we have another veteran of the NHL retiring at the age of 35. We have some signings to discuss, some more news in coaching and management. Plus, we're expecting a huge announcement tomorrow regarding the future of expected 2026 first overall pick, Gavin McKenna. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Let's start with the news that longtime NHL player and 35-year-old Tyler Johnson has announced his retirement from the NHL. A little bit surprising, but not completely. Johnson has bounced around a little bit here in recent years, struggled to catch on, and has gone through some pretty significant injuries here towards the latter half of his career as well. So all in all, Tyler Johnson, though, has got lots to be proud of. He's an undersized forward who certainly defied the odds. He was an undrafted player, one of the better undrafted players in the last probably 20 years to really not only make the NHL, but to have the impact that he did and the career that he did. He played in 747 games, putting up 433 points. That's not even the most impressive, though. He's done a lot of winning in his career, and not just at the NHL level, but he does have 2 Stanley Cups. He was a part of those back-to-back cups here a number of years ago now with the Lightning. So he's got 2 cups with Tampa. Coming into the NHL, he was already a proven winner, having a terrific junior career with the Spokane Chiefs, where he won not only a WHL championship, but he's a Memorial Cup champion early in his junior career as well. And then after getting signed and turning pro, he early in that part of his career was an American Hockey League champion, winning the Calder Cup with Norfolk as part of the Lightning AHL affiliate at the time. So he's won at every level, junior champion, AHL champion, and NHL champion. Pretty good point totals for a player his size. He was a finalist for Rookie of the Year in his first full NHL season. Like I said, he's not 35 yet. He'll be 35 later this month, but and he's been defying the odds for his entire career. I remember when he was first getting into the league, they called them the triplets because they're all players that were on the smaller side, but very slick and highly skilled. When he played a lot with Kucherov and Andre Palat coming up through the ranks in Tampa. Just a tremendous career. Like I said, an undrafted player who really defied the odds and did extremely well and won at every level. So he's got lots to be proud of here as he kind of rides off into the sunset for the next stage of his life. So certainly congrats to Tyler Johnson on a terrific career, and certainly hope whatever comes next works out and you continue to be successful. We have some signings to discuss today as well, the biggest one being the Philadelphia Flyers coming to terms with young defenseman Cam York. The RFA defenseman signs a 5-year contract valued at $5.15 million. So York and the Flyers come to terms, get that done fairly early here into the offseason. I mean, it's bound to see a few RFA deals here kind of drag on. You certainly don't want to be one of them if you can help it. But I think it's a pretty fair contract. I think that's a deal that should age well. It should work out well for both sides. I know after there was a part of the time, especially last year and to an extent the year before as well, where I think there was some doubt about the future of York, as long-term future, at least in Philly. I know the relationship with Tortorella wasn't always great, and he certainly went through some tough times, but I think he's, for the most part, kind of persevered through that, and hopefully we'll have a better future here and better projection here under head coach Rick Talk. But based on what he's done, I know a lot of people feel that's a pretty fair deal, so hopefully it turns out that way. Now, another signing here that just happened, just broke the news here as I was recording this video, but the Utah Mammoth and Jack McBain are avoiding arbitration. Of course, he and Bo Byram were both players that were taken to team-elected salary arbitration at yesterday's deadline. We found out that both of those teams, the Sabres and Mammoth, had filed for team-elected arbitration, but it's not going to be necessary in this particular case, as the two sides have come to an agreement here just a day later. McBain is going to be staying with Utah on a long-term basis, signing a 5-year contract at $4.25 million per season. So that's a big upgrade for him. I know there was interest in a player that they really like to keep around. Surprised it's as long as it is, but you know what? He's still a player that could be long-term with the cap going up, could be a really good third-line player. I know sometimes you see this kind of amount of money and you're like, oh, wow, for a bottom-six guy. But look at how much the cap's gone up this year and what's expected to in the next couple of years. When you're negotiating a contract for, 3, 4, 5 years out, you're looking at what the cap projections are to be each year and kind of how that works out, and then you average it all out. So think about in 3 years, for example, the cap could be exponentially higher than it is now. A $4 million player on your third line is going to be pretty common, if not even considered valuable, like very team friendly. So we'll see where it goes, but I think that's a pretty good contract to avoid arbitration and keep McBain in the mix there with Utah. We have another signing in Ottawa, nothing major, just Jamison Rees, an RFA defenseman, he didn't get a qualifying offer, gets signed. But it's an AHL only deal, so he won't be eligible for call-up. So Rees has played in the AHL a fair bit, been in the Sens organization for a while now. He was a pretty good piece in Belleville, so they're happy to bring him back, but obviously not at the qualifying offer in the two-way NHL contract. So if he plays well enough, and if they get to the point where they need a call-up, he can always have his contract upgraded, but that's where he'll be for now. In Washington, have signed an interesting player as well. They've signed a 29-year-old free agent forward, Sheldon Rempel, who gets a 1-year, two-way contract, but it's a pretty lucrative two-way deal. $775 at the NHL, $450K at the American Hockey League. He was one of the top scorers in the KHL playing over in Russia last year. So we will see how Rempel does. I think it's another one of those players you don't mind seeing the team take a bet on. Has some potential, has some skill, has had success elsewhere. Why not give him a shot? If it works out, you get yourself a pretty cheap contract if there's good success, and really there's not much risk if it doesn't work out too well. At the very least, he should be a good American Hockey League player. That part shouldn't be too big a deal. It's just a matter of can he translate it to the NHL and make some headway with that roster, which time will tell. Some other news around the NHL. Tampa's also got a few other things going on within their front office. They've named Joel Bouchard, who was the head coach of the American Hockey League team in Syracuse. He's now also the general manager for that club as well, so he's going to have dual roles there. And then the Lightning also brought back Jeff Tambellini to the organization as well. Of course, he's been with the Lightning on multiple occasions before. Tambellini is going to be an assistant GM and a director of hockey operations. He'll also be an assistant GM for the Syracuse team at the American Hockey League level. Of course, Tambellini comes from a hockey family. Of course, his dad was around the NHL a fair bit, and he's also played for the Lightning as a player in the past. After retirement, also worked for them another stint before when he first got into the off-ice side of hockey as a scout. So Tambellini's now with his third stint as a member of the Lightning organization. And the Dallas Stars have hired Toby Peterson, who formerly of the Avalanche organization, to be their next head coach for their American Hockey League team, the Texas Stars. So Toby Peterson will get the opportunity to make the jump to be into that role for Dallas. Now, as I mentioned as well, we're expecting some significant news likely coming tomorrow, and that's on the future of projected 2026 first overall pick, Gavin McKenna. McKenna at this point has been projected first overall for 2026 for at least a few years now. He looks like he's going to be a phenomenal player. I mean, I don't want to throw out the term generational or anything like that. It's a little early, but he has the ability, I think, to impact a team. Some words, I think he'll be closer to the impact of a player like a McDavid, like an Eichel, like those guys, than we've seen with some first overall picks. Some of them are really good players. Sometimes it turns out to be a big help to the franchise. They're not always franchise altering, or not just altering, but look what McDavid's done for Edmonton. I'm not saying he's going to be McDavid. We'll see. That's a little early for that, I think, but like I said, I think he's closer to that level of a first overall pick than he is some of the ones who have had less impact so far. So we'll see, but McKenna is expected to announce tomorrow where he's going to play next year, and the belief is he's going to give his commitment to Penn State University. Of course, that's a program who was just in the Final Four trying to win a national championship, and they do have a lot of players coming back, so it's expected to be a really good team. It's going to get that much better with McKenna. I know another 2025 first rounder as well, Jackson Smith, is already committed to going there as well. So that could be a huge addition for Penn State if McKenna does indeed commit there, and if the rumors are true, that's where he's going to be heading. I mean, to me, I know some are. It's tough for the junior leagues with the rules the way they are now, but I don't know that Gavin McKenna really has anything left to prove in Canadian junior hockey. I think this will be a much bigger test for him and a better development path. So as much as it sucks on one side, it benefits him on the other. And like I said the other day, you're going to see a change of strategies now and change of developments, because obviously, we've got a situation now where the NCAA rules have changed, right? Before, you played one game of junior hockey in Canada, you were suddenly not eligible for that anymore, and now you are. So you're going to see players, play a year or two of junior hockey and then consider the jump to college. Now, not all players are going to do this, and not all players are going to do that. But, if they're a really dominant player at the junior level, it only makes sense because, you're playing against older, more mature players. It should be a tougher, bigger challenge for you to really help with your development. So we'll see. But Gavin McKenna expected to announce tomorrow that he's going to Penn State next year, which would be huge. Now, as I mentioned, in the rumor mill, we've got a bunch of things we're looking at. One thing I found very interesting today was on Jeff Merrick's program, The Sheet, talking a bit more about Anaheim Ducks former number 3 overall pick, Mason McTavish. Now, McTavish right now is an unsigned restricted free agent. His name has been in the rumor mill for really the better part of the last, week or so. McTavish is a player that is certainly, I think, still projects to be a very high-end player in the NHL, and I think has all the talents and skill set to be a player teams are going to be wanting, because I think he's a guy you can win with. He is got good size, highly skilled, but also not afraid to be the physical type, and he's got all those extra, things that you see from the teams that are winning now. He has that, and just is one of those higher end players. Now, to me, I think he's not a player that the Ducks intend on wanting to move on from. I don't think any of the rumors here are because the Ducks are we're not sure about him, or we don't think he's going to be as good. It's nothing along those lines. Jeff Merrick was saying that basically McTavish is on the radar of a bunch of NHL teams right now, trying to see where things are at, because there's some speculation and he may be frustrated over his role with the team, and that's why there's been more and more questions about his future. Ultimately, McTavish, like I said, was drafted very highly, 3rd overall, was expected by now to be a number 1 center. Clearly, he's got competition for that role after Leo Carlsson came along, which I don't think is completely a bad thing. I don't think it's not a case here of McTavish kind of wanting everything handed to him, but I do think it's fair to say that over the last couple of years that he's been in the NHL, he's seen his role be kind of all over the place, like some of these young players with Anaheim. And of course, they got a new coach now with Joe Quenneville, and they're probably going to see a lot of changes in how things are done this year. For players to stick around, it's not going to be the same as what you saw under Greg Cronin. Or even the coach before him. But in the case of McTavish, he wasn't eligible to go for arbitration. Obviously, he's not have enough NHL experience to have that right yet. So that's why he didn't file for arbitration. But he is eligible for an offer sheet. Now, Anaheim does have a lot of salary cap space, and to be fair, I'm not sure that they wouldn't match pretty much any offer sheet unless it's completely ridiculous. And at that point, really, you're looking at, is a team going to want to give up 4 first-round picks or something like that? As much as everybody likes McTavish, I don't know if they like him quite to that level. So, it's really hard to say what's going on. But if the rumors and speculation are true about over his frustration, that's probably stems where a lot of the stuff's coming from. Now, the other thing you got to factor in here is Pat Verbeek, as a general manager, has kind of developed a reputation for absolutely grinding his players on these contract negotiations. Absolutely nothing is handed out for free in Anaheim. Since he's been a GM there, A lot of these negotiations have been very tough. He tends to have a trend with all these young players pretty much preferring to do bridge deals, not to give them a long-term big money deal coming out of the ELC. So again, it's going to be tough to get a long-term commitment from the team on these players. I think the same will probably go for Lucas Dostal, who's in the same boat. Now, he was old enough that he could file for arbitration, but he's not signed yet. And again, he's the goalie of the future. He's pretty clear that way. You would think they would be trying to do a long-term deal, but the expectation is it's probably not going to go that way. It's probably only going to be a shorter deal in a couple of years. So I'm not. It just seems to be Verbeek's way. And I understand the whole concept of not, if you want them to earn everything they get. I get that. But, I think it's certainly rubbed people the wrong way to some extent. I don't think Trevor Zegras was overly happy there, which, obviously we saw his role change, and with the acquisitions they've made, just didn't make sense for him to stay there. They may regret things if it gets to that point with McTavish. Now, like I said, some teams that I've seen be interested based on what the reports are and what I know based on what the fan bases are saying on social media. A lot of people are pointing one to Montreal because they clearly need a number 2 center. He's young. He fits their age group. There's a lots that, and he's a different kind of player than what they already have. He's a little bigger, a little more physical with that same high-end skill. Different, very different player than Suzuki. Shoots the opposite way. There's lots of things there that would complement the team extremely well. So there's no doubt that I'm sure Montreal and Kent Hughes have at least looked into this. I mean, I think most teams would. The other team that's come up a lot is Ottawa. Now, Ottawa's not as much of a direct need for a player like him, but I think most teams could still be better with McTavish. So, again, the connections to Ottawa run very, very deep. For one, it's his hometown, growing up just outside of the city, so there is that. Secondly, he has a connection to the owner and the GM, having played junior hockey in his final season for Staios and Hanlauer in Hamilton, where they won a league championship and went to the Memorial Cup. So they've won with him before. They know what he's capable of. He was brought in as a big piece there in the junior trade deadline and worked out quite nicely for them. The other thing a lot of people don't realize is that Mason McTavish's father, Dale, works for the Ottawa Senators. So obviously he's got somebody on the inside very fond of him on a whole different level. But regardless of that, I think his father's not going to influence the team to make a deal like that. But his role within the team is certainly grown. So again, teams are monitoring McTavish very closely. A few teams are getting more of the speculation around where he could go, but I think there will be a lot of teams lining up to talk to Anaheim. We'll see what happens, but unless the player requests a trade, I don't see him Verbeek going out of his way to shop him. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but at least we understand a little bit better now where some of the rumors are coming from. Now, there's also new reports, because we've heard a lot about Jordan Kyrou in the rumor mill from St. Louis. I've seen more reports today indicating that it's not just Montreal that's interested. Another Canadian team like Toronto is also very interested. The Maple Leafs view him as being a potential player who would be a pretty good top-line replacement. I mean, obviously, you're not going to replace Marner's 100 points and everything he did for that franchise, but Kyrou's a pretty good, fast, high-level, high-skilled right winger who could do a pretty good job of replacing a lot of those points. And getting a chance to play with players like Nyes and Matthews, he would probably do extremely well. So there is interest from him. Now, we know that Kyrou's no move clause kicked in here July 1. There was some back, I want to say 4 or 5 days ago, a few reporters, I think Sarah Valley was one of them, indicating that he thought St. Louis was very interested in maybe moving the contract, trying to change up their mix and whatnot. It's kind of what he was saying. At this rate, like I said, we've heard that Montreal was still interested, even though he was still, even though that clause had kicked in now. Obviously, they must have some kind of confidence. I've seen some say Kyrou is really good buddies with Nick Suzuki, and maybe that's the case. But again, it's a lot more to it than just that. I mean, and in Toronto, I don't know if there's any interest there from Kyrou's perspective, because clearly he's at a point where he would have full say. The problem here is if Toronto is looking at Kyrou, they don't have anywhere near the trade assets that Montreal does. Montreal's not as deep with trade assets as they used to be after pulling off trades for Noah Dobson, and then the other trade they did with St. Louis for Zachary Bolduc. Now, at one point, though, I think the Blues and Habs were talking about a bigger package that had Kyrou's name involved, but they could never get anywhere close to agreeing on things, and that was likely before the no trade kicked in. So I'm not really sure. I know that there's some say Montreal's still interested, and maybe they are, but I don't get any kind of idea here that St. Louis is really going to push this too much at this point, but there was lots of speculation prior about them wanting to move the contract, but I think they're a little bit stuck with it now unless he calls the shots, which is going to reduce the value. Toronto likely could be interested, and he could be a good replacement for Marner, but I think it would be very, very difficult for them to pull that off. I know with Montreal as well, lots of talk about their number 2 center spot still being open. Not clear how they're going to do that after pulling off other trades. That's still a spot that's not been really seen to yet, but Evgeny Kuznetsov is a pending free agent here from the KHL, of course, with lots of NHL experience, who is wanting to come back, and there's been some chatter that maybe he could be a player they turn to if he's willing to accept a 1-year, hopefully fairly inexpensive contract to play there. He does have some experience playing with Demidov. Him and Demidov were on the same KHL team last year, and they did get to play together some, so it could be an older Russian player who could be around for Demidov's sake, and somebody they have played together, so it's not like they're unfamiliar. And if it doesn't work out, if he can take the right contract, then maybe it's okay. If it works out, if it's even better, right? So we'll have to see if Kuznetsov could be a potential target for Montreal. I know Marco D'Amico and RG.org was suggesting that it's something that they're at least considering. Montreal, on the other hand, does have some other names that are out there in the rumor mill as well, including Josh Anderson and Mike Matheson. Again, I don't know that they're not necessarily shopping these players, but in search for potential 2C options. I think Anderson would be a name they would be willing to move if it got them the right piece. Now, Matheson, it sounds like, because he's entering the final year of his contract where Anderson has a few years left. In Matheson's case, it's believed that Kent Hughes, who has known Matheson a long time, has a long-standing relationship with him as a player, that they would want to discuss contract extension first. Now, that may seem confusing to some because clearly on the left side of their blue line, he would not be given precedence over young stars like Lane Hudson and Caden Gooley. So do you want Mike Matheson being your third pair left shot defenseman? I mean, not really the type of D you think of when you think of that role. I guess depending on what he's willing to accept for a contract. I mean, he is a good veteran to have around on off the ice. They like a lot of what he brings, and could still be a mentor for some of these younger D, which is good to have around. You can't have a completely, a full D-core under the age of 25. Like, you need to have somebody around with experience. David Savard's not an option anymore. They just brought in Noah Dobson, who's still on the younger side of things. You got David Reinbacher coming. They traded Logan Mailloux. You got Jaden Struble around. Like, there's not much for experience around outside of Matheson. So that would probably be the rationale for keeping him. But before they do anything with him as far as the potential trade goes, it sounds like they want to talk contract extension, which I don't know if they've gotten to that point here just yet. But those are names out there that they're willing to consider for a number 2 center if something has to come off the roster, because they do have a cap issue as well. Of course, they do have the Carey Price contract, which can go on long-term injury reserve, which could solve a lot of their issues. There's also the possibility they trade the Carey Price contract so it doesn't have to count on their roster, and then that can free up money that way as well. So we've been hearing for some time that trading the Price contract so they can get out of long-term injury reserve and actually accumulate more cap space throughout next season would be preferable. It would allow them to probably have a better pool of money to add at the deadline. So assuming they're going to be in the mix for playoffs again. So yeah, it could be a strategy we see. So I'd throw Carey Price's contract in that mix as well, with guys like Anderson and Matheson that could be trade pieces if they find that right piece to come and kind of complement their forward group. And in Vancouver as well, another couple of guys, they're still looking for some improve their center depth. There's still belief that a guy like Dakota Joshua is available. I think some people think that for the right deal, Teddy Bluger's available. Josh was a name that I kind of wondered about for Toronto. There was belief before he signed back in Vancouver that there was interest from the Leafs prior. I mean, he is a big, strong, rugged winger who has put up a decent amount of goals. Last year wasn't the greatest for him, but the year before was much better, of course, where he got his contract. So, it could be another piece that some teams, not just Toronto. I know sometimes it feels like the Leafs are linked to everybody, but Dakota Joshua, like I said, is the kind of player that you would love to have on your third line. Like I said, if he can get you 15 to 20 goals and be a real physical presence, a good net front, can get some time on the power play, whether it be first or second unit. Like, he can be a versatile guy. And it seemed like he was just kind of gaining his confidence and building his role. And then last year, a lot of things in Vancouver just didn't go right last year and really screwed things up. So, if they hang on to him, maybe he refines that form and maybe ends up being a good piece for them. But it sounds like after the way last year went, he is a name that if they can find a way to upgrade, that he is available for the right trade. So we'll see what happens, and we'll kind of go from there. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.